Students, this lecture will be dedicated to few problems, and we'll learn about Ohm's law in this video lecture. We have one problem. Calculate the drift velocity or drift speed of electrons when 1 ampere of current exists in your copper wire of cross section 2 millimeter square. The number of free electrons in 1 centimeter cube of copper is this. So you are being given the data. You are supposed to calculate drift speed. First, write down what is the data given to you. You have got current I, which is 1 ampere. Current in the conductor is 1 ampere, whose cross sectional area is 2 millimeter square. Milli is 10 power minus 3 whole square meter square. Therefore, area is 2 into 10 power minus 6 meter square. That is area of cross section. And the number of free electrons in 1 centimeter cube of copper is 8.5 into 10 power 22. So that is number density given as 8.5 into 10 power 22 per centimeter cube. This is per centimeter cube. And remember, all other terms are in SI system. You need to convert this centimeter cube into meter. This gives you 8.5 into 10 power 22 divided by cent is 10 power minus 2. 10 power minus 2 whole power 3 is 10 power minus 6 per meter. This is number density. That is finally 8.5 into 10 power. 6 goes to numerator. It becomes 10 power 28 per meter cube. So generally, for a conductor, the number density or the electron number density, strictly speaking, the electron number density is of order 10 power 28. You need to remember that. So if it is given in the problem, then you have nothing to do. You can take that value. If at all in problem it is not mentioned, then approximately you can take it as 10 power 28 as the order of number density. You are now supposed to find out drift velocity of the electron. What is formula for drift velocity of the electron? Vd is equal to n into E into tau divided by m. That is equation for drift velocity. Or you can use Vd is equal to I divided by NEA. Of course, this you cannot use because you do not know what is relaxation time. Here in the problem, relaxation time is not given. So you cannot use this equation. Use this one. Drift velocity is equal to I by NEA. What is current given? 1 ampere by N is number of electrons 8.5 into 10 power 28. Charge of the electron is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 into A is area of cross section 2 into 10 power minus 6. This gives you drift velocity is 1 by 8.5 into 1.6 into 2 into 10 power. First I'll eliminate this 10 parts. So here it is 19, 10 power minus 19 goes here. So it become 9. And from that 9, here minus 6 goes. Remained is 3. The 3 goes to numerator, or here you can write it as 10 power 3. This is 10 power minus 3 divided by 8.5 into 1.6 into 2. This will be the final expression, and that is in meter per second. Okay. So if you if you evaluate this, you can round it off to 1.6, 8.5 and 2. If you multiply this, nearly you will be getting a value of, let me check it. Final answer, I will be writing it directly. And that final answer seems to be it is nearly 0.036. 0.036 millimeter per second. If you evaluate this total, you are getting a value of drift velocity which is 0.036 millimeter per second. That means in 1 second, an electron in a conductor can travel a distance of 0.036 millimeter. Okay, this is an approximate value. Sometimes it may be 0.04. Sometimes it may be 0.038, 0.037, like that. But it is always in the order of millimeter. Okay. So in 1 second, if it is able to travel this much less distance, when you are taking a conductor of wire 1 meter or 2 meter or 1 kilometer, when you are taking a bulb and connecting it to a conductor, within just a second of time, by the time you just switch on the tap key, bulb will be glowing, right? So if an electron is taking to travel 0.036 millimeter in 1 second, then how does the bulb glow immediately when you switch on the circuit? That is what you are supposed to answer. So students, in this problem, we are going to learn something very interesting. So we have calculated drift velocity of an electron as 0.036 millimeter. That means in 1 second, it is traveling a distance of 0.036 millimeter. If you are taking a conducting wire whose length is approximately 1 kilometer, and when you switch on the tap key, there is a bulb which is connected with this battery. When you switch on, in order to travel 1 kilometer length for an electron, it takes nearly 30 to 40 hours. 30 to 40 hours it takes. But when you are switching on the bulb, immediately it glows, right? It is possible because when you are connecting a wire, like for example, if I take a conducting wire and you are connecting it to battery along with your tap key, right? Now when you switch on the tap key, immediately there is an electric field setting up in the conductor that we have already discussed. There is an electric field which is set up from positive terminal of the battery to negative terminal, and this is electric field E. And all the electrons which are present over here, those all electrons are drifted in specific direction. All the electrons are moving in the same direction under the influence of electric field. Don't call them as electrons, like I am considering this as positive charges because they are traveling in the direction of electric field. This is conventional current. I am talking about conventional current. So again, don't get confused. So conventional current is being set up within this. What actually happens is when you are connecting this to battery, there is an electric field setting up. Whenever there is an electric field, in electric field, electron experience force, right? Electron experience force, and because of that force, it will be getting some acceleration, and that acceleration is E capital E divided by M. This is acceleration experienced by the charged particle within the conductor. Now, when these electrons are being accelerated, remember that accelerating charged particle release electromagnetic waves. Accelerating charged particle release electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves transfer electrical energy. Electrical energy in conductor, right? So here it is actually not charge is being transferred. It is energy being transferred in the conductor, and that energy is electrical energy. As we know, light energy, if I suppose, light energy is transferred by electromagnetic waves. Similarly, sound energy is also transferred by longitudinal waves and as well as transverse waves. Simply we can call it as mechanical waves. Therefore, definitely there should be some form of wave which transfer the energy within the medium. In this case, it is electromagnetic wave which is transferring electrical energy within a conductor. So that electrical energy is being transferred by electromagnetic wave, and speed of electromagnetic wave is equal to 3 lakh kilometer per 1 second. So electromagnetic wave travel with speed of light, which is very highest speed. No other particle can travel with the speed of light. So these are electromagnetic waves which transfer with speed equal to speed of the light. That is the reason why electrical energy in a conductor is able to be transferred with a speed equal to light speed. Therefore, when you switch on the bulb, immediately, it may be even 10 kilometers distance. When you switch on the bulb, within a fraction of seconds, that bulb glow, right? That is the actual reason behind the transfer of electrical energy within the conductor. So what is that reason? When you are connecting it to battery, electric field is set up. When electric field is set up, all the charged particles get accelerated. Accelerating charged particles release energy, and that released energy is in the form of electromagnetic wave. These electromagnetic waves travel with a speed of 3 lakh kilometer per 1 second. Therefore, in 1 second, as this energy is able to transfer 3 lakh kilometer, even though a bulb is situated at very large distance, just after the tap key is switched on, within fraction of seconds, it is able to glow. That's the reason behind glowing of a bulb immediately when you switch on. Coming to the next question, students, we have in a hydrogen atom, electron moves in an orbit of radius 5 into 10 power minus 10 meter. So there is an electron which is revolving around a hydrogen. In a hydrogen atom, electron is revolving. And as we know, definitely there is a nucleus. Here is nucleus. Nucleus in the sense, in case of hydrogen, there is one single proton and single electron. Therefore, here it is nucleus. This nucleus has one proton. And this is nucleus. Electron will be revolving around the nucleus. And there is one electron here. Here is electron. As we already been discussing from last video lectures, that whenever a charged particle is in motion, the charged particle will produce electric current, is it not? Therefore, when an electron is revolving around the nucleus, this electron will produce some current. Now it is been given the radius of this charged particle R as 5 into 10 power minus 11 meter. So this is approximate order. Radius of Bohr's orbit is nearly 10 power minus 10, that you need to remember. With the speed is of order 10 power 6 and 10 power 7 generally for electrons in whatever orbit it may be, and that speed is given as 2.2 into 10 power 6 meter per second. That is the velocity with which electron is revolving. Now you should find out current in the circuit, like current in this hydrogen atom. Now as we know, current I is equal to charge flow, that is Q divided by T. How many charges are there? In an hydrogen atom, there is only one charged particle. Therefore, only one electron move. It is E divided by T. T is time taken for one complete revolution. That is denoted with capital T, where capital T is equal to time period of electron. Right? Now, whenever a charged particle is revolving, we know that angular velocity omega is equal to 2 pi divided by capital T, right? So angular velocity, it is omega, which is equal to 2 pi r. 2 pi r is the total distance traveled by the electron. 2 pi r is circumference of the circle, right? So it is 2 pi r divided by capital T. Or you can write it as omega is equal to, like this is equal to velocity v. So simply you can write T is equal to v divided by 2 pi r. Take this T and substitute in this expression. You will be getting I is equal to E divided by V into 2 pi r. This is 2 pi r E divided by V. All the values are known to you. I is equal to 2 into 3.14 into 5 into 10 power minus 11. Charge of the electron is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb divided by velocity of the electron is 2.2 into 10 power 6, and this is in ampere. So you need to calculate this, and approximately if you calculate that, you will be getting answer as 1.12 milliampere. So the electron motion around the nucleus of an hydrogen atom will produce a current of 1.12 milliampere. I'm sorry students, time taken here, I have just written it reverse. Time taken is equal to 2 pi r divided by v. So therefore I is equal to, I is current, I is equal to E divided by T is 2 pi r into V, right? So substituting that here, E is equal to 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. V is velocity, it is 2.2 into 10 power 6 divided by 2 into 3.14 into R. R is radius, it is 5 into 10 power minus 11. If you evaluate this, you will be getting 1.12 milliampere. That is current in the circuit. The current through a wire depends on time as I is equal to I naught plus alpha t. I is variable with respect to time. I is equal to I naught plus alpha t. That is given to you. It is variable with respect to time. I naught is some constant value. If t is equal to 1 second, I is equal to I naught plus alpha. T is equal to 2 second, I naught plus 2 alpha, I naught plus 3 alpha, so on. As time increases, current in the circuit goes on increases. It's variable with respect to time. So whenever you are being given functions, like if they are variable with respect to time or position or anything else, in such cases, you need to go for integration and differentiation blindly. Now here I naught value is given as 10 ampere. I naught is equal to 10 ampere and alpha is 4 ampere per second. Find the charge that crossed through a cross section of wire in 10 seconds. So when time t is equal to 10 seconds, you are supposed to find out what is the total charge transferred over here. Now as current is variable with respect to time, charge flow is also variable with respect to time. So as we know that instantaneous current is equal to dq divided by dt. From here you can write dq is equal to I instantaneous into dt. So therefore q can be written as integration 0 to limit time taken t, and it is I instantaneous into dt. Take this I instantaneous and substitute here so that you will be getting charge q. Q is equal to integration from initial time to 10 second. Instantaneous value of current is I naught plus alpha into t into dt, right? This gives you q is equal to I naught into t, limits are from 0 to 10, plus alpha into t dt is t square by 2, limits are from 0 to 10. Substitute these values over here. I'm sorry, this is I naught. Substitute all the values. I naught is given, alpha is given, time taken is 10 seconds. Evaluate its value for q, and that is nearly 300 coulomb. That is the final value for charge passing through the conductor at an instant of 10 seconds. So as we have already learned, whenever there is a conductor connected with a battery, definitely there will be current setting up in the circuit, and every conductor will offer some resistance because inbuilt every conductor has some resistivity. And we have got even Ohm's law, J is equal to sigma into E, or you can write it as E is equal to 1 by rho into J. These are the forms of Ohm's law which we have already learnt in the previous video lecture. These are the things which we have discussed, and even we have learned V is equal to IR. So from J is equal to sigma E, or E is equal to 1 by rho into J, we have got V is equal to IR, and this is other form of Ohm's law. So from this we will be getting a conclusion that current in the circuit is directly proportional to voltage provided under constant temperature. So if the temperature of the conductor is maintained constant, then in such case you can clearly tell that current in the circuit is directly proportional to voltage. Therefore simply you can write V is proportional to I. And from this expression we have got R is equal to delta V divided by delta I, which is termed as resistance of the conductor. And remember, resistance of the conductor is variable with respect to length, area, and as well as nature of the material, and as well as temperature, that we have already seen in the previous video lecture. R is equal to delta V divided by delta I. Now from Ohm's law you can clearly understand that whenever you are connecting a conductor to a battery, and if you measure current and as well as voltage for that particular conductor, say here we are finding out, we are taking voltage, and here is conductor I, and what I am doing is I'll be taking a resistor here which offers some resistance, its value is R, and I am connecting it to battery of some voltage V along with a tap key. This is the circuit. In order to measure voltage across this resistor, I will be connecting one voltmeter in parallel with the resistor, and in order to measure current in the circuit, I will be connecting one ammeter in series in the circuit. This is an electrical circuit setup in order to verify Ohm's law. So already we have got theoretically Ohm's law, V is equal to IR. Now we are verifying that. So when we are verifying it, what you will do? You need to have a resistor. Resistor can be even like it can be a bulb also, no problem with that. Bulb do offer some resistance. So any resistance of some value you are taking over here. In order to measure voltage across this resistor, you are connecting one voltmeter in parallel. Remember, voltmeter measures potential difference. Voltmeter measures potential difference between 2 points. And as it is measuring potential difference 2 points, you need to connect it in parallel. And symbol of voltmeter is V, like this. This is the symbol of voltmeter. Similarly, you have ammeter. Ammeter is a device which measures current in the circuit. Current should be measured by ammeter, and definitely it should be connected in series, because in the path of the current you need to place the ammeter. Therefore, it should be definitely connected in series with that particular conductor to measure how much current is flowing through that path. Therefore, it should be in series, and symbol of ammeter is A. So wherever we are using ammeter, you need to use this symbol. Voltmeter, you need to use this symbol V. Now I am using those two and measuring voltage and as well as current flowing through the circuit. Now clearly you can observe that as you are increasing when you switch on the tap key, and if you measure voltage and current in the circuit with respect to voltage, like for example voltage, if you are taking 5 volt and this is in volt and current is in ampere, If you are taking 5 volt, you are getting some current as 2 ampere. If you are increasing this to 10 volt, you are getting 4 ampere. If you are increasing this to 15 volt, you are getting 6 ampere. If you are increasing this to 20 volt, you are getting 8 ampere. Clearly, you can observe that current in the circuit is directly proportional to voltage. And if you plot graph for these values, which you have got experimentally, you will be getting a straight line which pass through the origin, or like it depends on like the values what you are getting here. Depending on that, you will be getting a straight line graph. Usually, I am taking here a straight line. This is how you will be getting current in the circuit. This is VI graph. It is VI graph. Voltage current graph plotted for a conductor of resistance R. Experimentally, we are doing this. Experimentally, we have got V and I values. And for that, if you plot a graph, you are getting a straight line. And if you calculate slope of this, what do you get? Slope of this straight line, like I will be taking 2 points over here. If I take 2 points, these are the 2 points A and B. Let me take it as V1 and this as V2. Let me take it as I1 and this is I2. In order to find out slope of this, what do you get? Delta I divided by delta V, which is equal to I2 minus I1 by V2 minus V1. This is equal to 1 by R, right? Right. R is delta V by delta I. But what you are getting here, delta I by delta V, that is reciprocal of resistance. Therefore, you need to remember that slope of VI graph gives reciprocal of resistance. Sometimes you may be asked a question, like you may get a problem. They will be giving you graph like this. You should find out resistance in the circuit. In such case, what you will do? See, when you are getting graph, definitely you need to check this I and V. Sometimes they may give these values reverse. Y-axis they may take V, X-axis they may take I. Then in such case, directly slope gives you resistance. Suppose on the X-axis, if it is being given voltage and on Y-axis it is given I, then in such case, reciprocal of the slope gives you resistance. So when looking to the problem, directly don't calculate the reciprocal. First check the parameters which are given along X-axis and Y-axis. Then calculate slope. From there, you can find out resistance by either finding out the reciprocal of the slope or the slope itself. That depends on parameter in the circuit, right? These are the interesting things about Ohm's law. And those materials which obey Ohm's law are called as ohmic conductors. Those does not obey Ohm's law, they are called non-ohmic conductors. I'm sorry students, E is equal to, like if you are bringing sigma over here, it is 1 by sigma. 1 by sigma into J. This can be simply written as E is equal to rho into J. That small silly mistakes often I make in hurry. So whenever I am making such mistakes, kindly excuse me. In general, we will be taking metallic conductors in any electrical circuit. Generally, it is copper. Sometimes it may be aluminum even. Aluminum or copper are most used metals for electrical conduction. Now, for metals, VI graph is straight line. So simply you will be plotting VI graph, voltage here and current here, you will be getting a straight line graph. But there are few other materials, for example, semiconductors and electrolytes, alkaline earth metals. So for these materials, if you plot VI graph, voltage and current if you plot, You may not get straight line. Of course, V is proportional to I here, and here also V proportional to I, but it is not with constant slope. Here in this case, slope is not constant. You will not get slope constant. You will not be getting a straight line. But however, here V is proportional to I. That is valid. Voltage current is increasing in this case also, but it's not directly proportional. There will be some other parameter in this proportionality. So based on the VI graph obtained for different materials, we can classify materials into two different types. They are number one, ohmic, and number two, non-ohmic. Okay. Ohmic conductors are also called linear conductors. Non-ohmic conductors are also called non-linear. Right? So those materials which obey Ohm's law, they are called ohmic conductors. Those materials does not obey Ohm's law, they are called non-ohmic conductors. A VI graph for ohmic conductors is straight line. But whereas in case of non-ohmic conductors, you will be getting a curve graph. You will be getting curve graph for non-ohmic conductors. Ohmic conductors examples, all metals. Non-ohmic conductors examples, semiconductors, electrolytic solutions, electrolytes, alkali earth metals. Example. So these all are examples of non-ohmic conductors. So therefore, non-ohmic conductors generally we will be using in electronic devices. Non-ohmic conductors are useful in electronics, whereas ohmic conductors are useful in electricals. Remember, electricals and electronics both are different. Electricals are those materials which are made with metals, and electronic devices are those materials which are made with the semiconductors. Therefore, non-ohmic conductors are usually used in constructing electronic devices. Ohmic conductors are generally used to construct electrical device, fan, tube light, generally whatever we use in our household consumptions, those all comes under electricals. They are ohmic conductors. They work with alternating current. Whereas in case of non-ohmic conductors, they are made up of semiconductors. Semiconductors constitute electronics. Electronics use DC supply. DC supply they use. They are cell phones, laptops, tablets, and LED, LCD. These all devices work with DC supply. We will be having an adapter. That adapter will convert alternating current into direct current, and for them DC is useful. Electronic devices, all electronic devices work with DC. Whereas electrical devices, they are made up of conductors. For them we use AC, fan, tube light, refrigerator, and mixer, grinder. All these devices are made up of electrical devices. They work with AC. Okay, so that is the difference between ohmic and non-ohmic conductors.